What's up YouTube, my name is Alkin. In today's video, I'm giving you the official roamer guide for year 8. Let's get into the video. So first of all, what is a roamer? A roamer is somebody who is meant to roam off of the objective. That is essentially what a roamer means, whether it be because they need to use utility offsite or just because it's their general playstyle. Next, I'm going to go over the list of roamers, and this consists of Alibi, Caviera, Ella, Jaeger, Mozzie, Oryx, Solus, Thorn, Thunderbird, and Vigil. These are all the main roamers. And then also we have another category of roamers, which are situational roamers. These are roamers that can be used to roam, but only in certain situations. These consist of Castle, Clash, Legion, Pulse, Valkyrie, and Wamai. These are all operators that can roam, but only in certain situations. So now that we've gone over what a roamer is and who all of the roamers in the game are, let's go over how you actually should be playing as a roamer, or the different playstyles that there are. The first playstyle out of two is the aggressive playstyle. This is the most common approach you'll see in solo queue ranked. It's where you're completely roaming out of sight, you're rooms away, maybe even floors away, and you're running at any enemy that you see, and you're taking aggressive gunfights, and you're not backing down the control of the map that you're trying to control. And then there's the passive roamer approach. This is essentially sitting in a room, but playing very passively. So if they run at you, they use utility at you, they drone you out, you kill the utility, and then you leave, and you give them free space. Another way to play passively is just to waste time. So you'll sit in the room, again, until they aggress you out of the room, and you can't sit in the room safely for very much longer. Now, which playstyle should you use? Just because the aggressive playstyle, which I talked about firstly, is the one that most people use, does not mean that that's the one that you should be using. In fact, the passive approach of roaming is actually the correct way to roam. Let me explain. As a roamer, your job is not to get kills. This is contrary to what 90% of people believe when they roam. Your job as a roamer is actually just to waste time. You're essentially the first line of defense for the entire defensive side. The anchors should be the last people in the round to be seeing action because your roamers should be the people that take gunfights first. It's essentially an entry on attack, but for defense. But instead of trying to get kills, you're just wasting the entry's time so they don't have as much time when they push your anchors on the defense. The way you waste the most amount of time effectively while also preserving your life is shooting drones, making it to where they don't know where you are, so anti-information like Vigil, Mozzie, and Mute, making your presence known, but not necessarily aggressing with your presence, which is another term called ghost pressure, and overall just being a nuisance in people's backside so that they're forced to clear you out of where they are if they want to continue their execute. In my opinion, this is the best way to roam. Just wasting time, being a nuisance, but not being too aggressive to where you're taking gunfights, shooting drones, shooting utility, and giving up the room that you're in when it's necessary. But always try to just be the thorn in their backside, whether it be because you have the potential to flank or the potential to kill them because they didn't properly clear you out. Now, should you actually be roaming? The roamer playstyle is very much like the entry playstyle, and in terms of you need good aim if you want to do it effectively. Now, like I just said, as a roamer, your job isn't to get kills, it's to waste time. But because you're the first line of defense, you're almost guaranteed a gunfight every single round if you are roaming, which means if your playstyle and your game sense aren't cutting it for the round, you're going to have to fall back on your aim, and your aim needs to be consistent and good for it to be something that you can reliably fall back on. Typically as well, roamers have pretty good guns with typically 1.5 times scopes, so being able to aim well can not only waste a lot of time on utility, but it can also decrease the attacking man count whenever you kill half of their team trying to roam clear you. So if typically you're a very kill hungry person and you're not too terribly excited about using utility or maybe getting on cams for the first minute and a half of the round, roaming is definitely for you. Now, going into actual roaming tips that I can give you, first thing is I'm going to start off with communication. Communication is very important, not only just in roaming, but in every facet of Rainbow Six Siege. As a roamer, your main job is not only to waste time, but to communicate to your anchors where the attackers are pushing from. Let's say you're roaming in the first floor of Oregon and your team is on the basement. It is your job as a roamer to effectively communicate to your team what side of the map they're pushing from.
They're pushing small tower side. They're pushing small tower side.
They're either going to push from small tower and main door, or they're going to push from garage and barrels. As a roamer, you're going to know where they're pushing from before anybody else does.
Yo, I just got shot from big tower. They're probably gonna go barrels.
Because you're going to see their drones and you're going to hear where they're breaking barricades or where they're shooting default cams. As a roamer, you need to call out to your team, hey, they're pushing small tower, or hey, they're pushing big tower, so that your team knows what to hold and what to prepare for whenever you eventually fall back to sight or die, or whenever they push angles that you're not able to hold. So as a roamer, early game, if you're communicating to your team effectively, it can actually make or break a round because it allows your defense to set up in a way that can completely counter the attacking side's push. Not only is it good to communicate in the very early stages of the round, but it's also important to communicate in the mid to late stages of the round, because people on attack typically rotate. If you're doing your job as a roamer correctly and you're applying enough pressure to where they can't get through to you, a lot of the times instead of killing you, they'll just go to the other side of the map. So if you're roaming and you're noticing a lot of pressure, and then after 30 seconds you're noticing not a lot of pressure, maybe you're hearing noises on the other side of the building, it's your job as a roamer to communicate, hey, they're rotating their push around to this side of the map.
Yo, I hear them rotating from kitchen to white stairs. They're gonna do a man white take.
So that your defenders on site know to then hold that side of the map and not waste their manpower holding 3 angles onto places that they're not even going to push. The next tip I'm going to give you is timing. Now, as a roamer, there's a time and place to be a nuisance, and there's a time and place to back off. Typically, if they have 1 or 2 more drones on you and they're droning you a lot, and you hear attackers near those drones that are about to follow up off of the information, that's your time to leave.
I'm rotating back. I'm gonna try to contest a meeting here, see if I can get a free kill.
Now, if they aren't droning you out, maybe they don't even know you're there, maybe they just have 1 drone on you or 1 person on you, as a roamer, you need to stay there and apply pressure and waste time so that you're not giving up free control too early into the round. If you give up control too early into the round, it's like you were never even there, and the pressure that you're supposed to be applying on the roam is pretty much all for naught. But if you figure out the perfect balance between applying enough pressure but also knowing when to back off, roaming can be wildly effective. Here's a general rule of thumb if you want to do this effectively. The first minute 30 of the round, you should be roaming and applying pressure. Once it gets to the last minute and 30 of the round, you want to start planning your route to exit. If there's a minute left in the round, you should already be on site. That minute 30 to 1 minute window typically is when you want to start making your way back to the objective in a safe manner. If you can't do it safely, then you need to do something called playing your life. Playing your life, even if you're anchoring, even if you're lurking, or even if you're roaming, means essentially the same thing. It means you're going to hold the position you're in for as long as possible until you die, until they take your life, which is why it's called playing your life. Playing time and playing your life are 2 polar opposites. Playing time essentially means I'm going to wait as long as I can until I can safely exit. Playing your life means you're going to play there as long as you live. There are certain positions that you can play as roamers that require different things. If the position that you're holding is very, very crucial to the defense and very powerful if the attackers are to get it, then you want to play your life there, because you want to make it to where you don't back out of there and you hold it so long as it takes your life to do so. A great example of a position like this is rafters in Clubhouse. If attackers take control of rafters, it's almost game over, because then they have a direct line of sight onto the CC server and the default plant, especially if they have the breach open. There's almost no retaking that unless you have more than 3 players still on the board. But if you're defending and roaming into rafters, it can be very powerful, because it means they can't walk in the breach, they can't walk up red stairs, they can't hop in the CC window, and they can't use garage control to then hop in the window and get the default plant down. So that is a position that you would normally play your life on. Now let me give you an example of a position you probably shouldn't play your life on and you need to learn to back out of. Let's go to Oregon, for example. If your teammates are playing basement and you're upstairs on the 3rd floor for Oregon, then typically you want to play time and not play your life, because there's hatches and routes that you can do back to site to allow you to be able to waste enough time, but also spare your life and come back to the objective. Because your team's on the basement and you're on the 3rd floor pressure is not necessarily needed for the attackers to win the round. The only reason they would need to take that floor is to flush you out of it. So if you're ever in a position and you think, do the attackers need this to win the round? If the answer is no, then just play time and play passively. But if the answer is yes, then typically you want to play your life. Now that we've gone over what roaming is and how to roam effectively, I'm going to go over every single roamer and how to play them. First of all is alibi. Alibi, you're meant to put her clones behind observation blockers, and once people shoot your clones thinking it's you, you then swing off of the information and the pings that the alibi clones provide. Pretty simple. Next is Cav. Cav, you're meant to sit in a corner of a map and make sure people misdrone you, and then go for a flank whenever you see fit. You're meant to be a silent flanker, essentially. This is a very high risk but high reward style of gameplay, and I don't recommend it if you're a rank above gold. Next is Ella. Ella is actually not meant to roam super heavily. She's meant to roam, but kind of near sight. This is a concept we call lurking. It's kind of in between anchoring and roaming. Ella is meant to sit behind her shield with her really good weapons and swing off of her Ella mines behind her shield whenever an attacker walks into them. Next is Jaeger. Jaeger is pretty much an all-around package. You can anchor, lurk, and roam with him effectively, all because you set down your utility on site and you can leave it alone and it still be effective even when you die. So with Jaeger, you can pretty much do anything, and that's why he's such a beginner-friendly roamer to learn. Next is Mozzie. Mozzie, you're meant to sit in a position and use your Mozzie pests to make sure that they can't drone you out of that position so that you can waste time for longer. Then you clean up with kills if you need to be aggressive with his P10 Roni 1.5 times scope, and it's free rounds. Typically in the prep phase, you want to be shooting drones, that way you can deny drones without actually wasting your pest, and then you use your pest to make it to where they can't drone you out, and it makes roam clearing for the attackers a lot more difficult. Next is Oryx. Oryx, you're meant to make rotates onto site with his bailiff or with his ability, and then you're meant to zip around from one side of the map to the other once you get a kill. He's essentially like roaming with 2 operators, but with 1 operator, because you show your face on this side of the map, maybe shoot a few bullets, maybe get a kill, and then you use your ability to either hop up a hatch or run super far to the other side of the map, and then shoot some bullets and get a kill. You're meant to make it to where the attackers don't know where you're going to pop out of next, and you're meant to be a very fast rotating roamer to keep the attackers guessing. Next is Solus. As Solus, in the prep phase, you want to be hunting drones and getting as much drone denial as possible. That way you can roam effectively as Solus and deny the plant in the late game of the round. You use Solus as an information getter to tell 1, what side of the map people are pushing from, and 2, what abilities they're using. Once they go to defuse the bomb, you can deny the defuse from below. Next is Thorn. Thorn is pretty much like Jaeger, where you put down his utility and you can kind of just do whatever you want. But I think the most effective way to play Thorn is like playing Ella. You sit with her gun behind a shield and you swing off of the information that their utility provides. Next is Thunderbird. Thunderbird's playstyle is identical to Jaeger's. You just put down her utility and you do whatever you want to do. And then lastly, for the normal roamer section, is Vigil. You're meant to play extremely passively as Vigil. You're not meant to be an aggressive roamer with Vigil at all. All you do is show face with your ability and make it to where drones can't drone you out, and then you leave once they drone you out or apply pressure heavily. This makes it to where they don't know if you've left or not because of your ability, so they waste a lot of time trying to find you. You essentially are just a knock-on defense. You activate your ability when they drone you, you leave, you show up somewhere else, activate your ability when they drone you, and you just keep wasting time through every single room that you sit in. And that's it for the entire video. If you want to know how to play the situational roamers that I talked about earlier in the video, let me know and I can make an entire guide based upon that down below. Like the video if you like, and sub to the channel down below as well while you're down there. My name's Alk and I will see you on the next video. Later.